Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership Live Part 10. Adrienne Mays, President of CCC Because We Care Foundation, Part 10, wanting to bring you live reading of what might be and the mandate for leadership, the conservative promise. We're going to pick up where we left off, not going to delay the process too long. We're going to get right into reading Project 2025. We're on 418 out of 9/2022, page 385 on the download, reading Project 2025. Federal Energy Management Program, FEMP, Mission Overview. The Federal Energy Management Program, FEMP, describes its mission as working with other federal agencies to meet energy-related goals, identify affordable solutions, facilitate public-private partnerships, and provide energy leadership to the country by identifying government best practices. Congress has created a number of energy and energy efficiency requirements and guidelines for federal agencies, and FEMP works with those agencies to help them meet their congressionally mandated goals. Needed reforms. As the world's largest single energy consumer, the federal government should use energy efficiently and cost effectively, especially because the taxpayer is paying the energy bills. The Obama administration required the federal government to set extra statutory and aggressive goals regarding the use of renewable energy. The Trump administration took a less aggressive approach in Executive Order 13834, which specified that each agency shall prioritize actions that reduce waste, cut costs, enhance the resilience of federal infrastructure and operations, and enable more effective accomplishment of its mission. New policies. A conservative administration should follow the language of Executive Order 13834 and direct federal agencies to reduce waste, cut costs, enhance the resilience of federal infrastructure and operations, and enable more effective accomplishment of its mission. For FEMP, this means focusing on helping federal agencies to follow the law and use energy efficiently and cost effectively. Budget. FEMP was funded at $40 million in fiscal year 2022, and slightly less than $170 million is requested for fiscal year 2023. If it is focused on helping the federal government to carry out a statutorily based energy goal, much less money is needed. Clean Energy Corps. Mission Overview. Under the IIJA, the Clean Energy Corps is charged with investing more than $62 billion to deliver a more equitable clean energy future for the American people. The Corps says that it will focus on deploying next generation clean energy technology to help America meet its goals of a carbon-free power sector in 2035 and a decarbonized economy in 2050. Needed reforms. The Clean Energy Corps is a taxpayer-funded program to create new government jobs for employees who will work together to research, develop, demonstrate, and deploy solutions to climate change. DOE anticipates recruiting an additional 1,000 employees using a special hiring authority included in the bipartisan infrastructure law. Taxpayers should not have to fund a cadre of federal employees to promote a partisan political agenda. New policies. Eliminate the Clean Energy Corps by revoking funding and eliminating all positions and personnel hired under the program. Budget. Funding for Clean Energy Corps employees is not clearly defined in fiscal year 2023. DOE budget requests. Energy Information Administration, EIA, Mission Overview. The U.S. Energy Information Administration collects, analyzes, and disseminates independent and impartial energy information to promote sound policymaking, efficient markets, and public understanding of energy and its interaction with the economy and the environment. Needed reforms. EIA is not an inherently problematic agency and historically has provided independent and impartial analysis. Requests for EIA analysis can be made by the administration or from members of Congress or congressional committees. EIA needs to be committed to providing unbiased forecasting and data so that policymakers, industry, and the public can have a clear understanding of our energy resources and energy economy. Strong leadership will be needed to ensure that data and reporting are not misused to promote a politicized energy transition. New policies clarify levelized cost of electricity. Levelized cost of electricity, LCOE, refers to the estimated revenue required to build and operate a generator over a specified cost recovery period. It is used in the National Energy Modeling System, NEMS, to compare the cost of technologies to determine which technologies are expected to be constructed in the future. Although it is useful in comparing the cost of resources over time, LCOE can also mask the massive amounts of capital needed to deploy new generation. Moreover, in the case of intermittent resources such as wind and solar, LCOE does not include the cost for backup or firming power from dispatchable resources. EIA should ensure that its reporting provides an accurate assessment of generation costs. The cost of backup power for when wind and solar resources are not available should be included when comparing the technologies and reported as a separate component in the modeling documents. Revised reserve margins. EIA, in conjunction with FERC, NERC, regional transmission organizations, RTOs, and the electric industry, should change how electric grid reserve margins are defined and calculated. In the past, reserve margins have looked at the amount of nameplate capacity on the grid to serve peak load plus a reserve. With the increasing number of intermittent, non-dispatchable resources like wind and solar, peak load and reserve margins need to be reevaluated. Reserve margins need to be timed to load changes throughout the day and consider the availability of dispatchable on-demand resources to meet load when renewables may not be available. Update reports on the impacts of federal financial interventions and subsidies. EIA's most recent report on federal financial interventions and subsidies was issued in April 2018. This is an important analysis because it clearly shows the level of the federal government's intervention in each area of the energy system for a given fiscal year. In the past, EIA performed the analysis pursuant to a request from Congress or the administration. This report should become a project that is performed annually or every other year as part of EIA's base program. Ensure the objectivity of the International Energy Outlook, IEO. In the past, EIA published the IEO every year. It is now published every 2 years. IEO forecasts are important because the International Energy Agency's forecast in its annual World Energy Outlook are becoming unrealistic and politically oriented to push Europe's climate goals. EIA forecasts should be based on current laws and regulations and should not be used to promote favored policies. Assess the case for prioritization. There are some who think that EIA should be privatized. The cost savings to taxpayers should be considered. On the other hand, EIA has generally demonstrated neutral data presentation that is helpful to policymakers and the private sector. Budget. Congress appropriated $126.8 million for EIA in fiscal year 2021, and the fiscal year 2023 budget request is for approximately $144.5 million. Office of International Affairs. Mission overview. The Office of International Affairs has primary responsibility for addressing international energy issues that have a direct impact on research, development, utilization, supply, and conservation of energy affecting the United States. It focuses on enhancing global energy security through countering malign influence, diversifying supplies, and increasing energy access, and is committed to increasing U.S. energy exports and trade to enhance growth. Needed reforms. Expands IA's roles and focuses its activities on U.S. international energy security interests. International energy activities should be consolidated under IA, and the Department of State's Bureau of Energy Resources should be eliminated to ensure proper understanding of domestic energy policy and how it affects foreign policy, as well as the international energy landscape and how it affects U.S. national and economic security. Develop a strategy for identifying and accessing resources and advancing U.S. economic interests. America has recently become a net energy exporter, but it still imports large amounts of essential energy resources such as oil and natural gas, as well as such materials as uranium, including yellow cake, lithium, certain rare earth minerals, and energy generation and transmission components and technology. The United States needs a clear understanding of its global energy and economic interests and a strategy for protecting them. Oppose climate reparations. During the November 2022 United Nations Climate Conference in Egypt, the Biden administration and other developed countries agreed to provide climate reparations to developing countries for the harm allegedly caused by the developed countries' use of fossil fuel. A reparations slush fund administered by a non-U.S. organization provides no assurance that U.S. interests will be protected and should not be supported in any form. New policies. Identify U.S. energy security interests and promote American energy dominance. To this end, IA should work closely with the DESAS Office of Policy on the National Energy Security Strategy. Strengthen the new DESAS, the Department of State. The State Department's Bureau of Energy Resources has generally excluded IA from serious discussions of international affairs to the detriment of DOE and broader interagency policy development. In addition, DOE embassy representatives are generally excluded from giving policy advice to senior diplomats and are used merely as sources of information instead of being active advocates for the Secretary's priorities. The Secretary of Energy is a senior member of the President's National Security Council and should function as such. The DOE's deputy secretaries, undersecretaries, and assistant secretaries should be guaranteed representation at all deputies and policy coordination committee meetings. In addition, senior political and career staff should hold positions on the NSC staff equivalent to their counterparts at State, Defense, Treasury, and the intelligence community, IC. DESAS billets should replace State Department Bureau of Energy Resources billets at the relevant post worldwide. Stop climate reparations. The president should refuse to provide climate reparations under an unratified treaty, and IA should encourage other countries to reconsider their desire to provide reparations. Arctic Energy Office, AE. Mission/overview. AE was established during the Trump administration to create a central office overseeing U.S. Arctic interests in Alaska and the other Arctic nations in response to the growing strategic sensitivity of this geographic region and the natural resources it contains. It serves as the principal advisor to the Undersecretary on all domestic Arctic issues, including energy, science, and national security. Needed reforms. In October 2022, the Biden administration released its national strategy for the Arctic region. Although recognizing national security threats in the Arctic, it also focuses heavily on climate change, sustainability, and international cooperation. The United States must establish a strategic plan to promote its national security, energy, and economic interests in the Arctic. An analysis and plan to support the responsible development of Alaska's energy assets should be a priority. New policies. Defend American interests in the Arctic Circle. The next administration needs to define American strategic and economic interests in the Arctic Circle. AE should help to identify those interests as well as threats posed by countries like Russia and China, and develop appropriate policy options for the president's consideration. Ensure that AE is clearly focused. In particular, this means identifying U.S. energy interests in the Arctic Circle, identifying foreign government and commercial interests in activity in the region, and ensuring that the United States does not forego important energy and national security interests in the Arctic. Expand AE's operation in Alaska. AE's operation in Alaska should be expanded to encompass broader national energy security interests in the region, including rare earths, oil, and natural gas. AE should also be the lead for DOE, Antarctic operations, as a counter to growing Russian and Chinese interests in Antarctic resources. Personnel. AE should provide a senior Arctic energy official to the U.S. Arctic Council delegation in recognition of the key role that energy plays in Arctic development. Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence, IAC, mission/overview. DOE's Office of Intelligence and Counterintelligence is responsible for all intelligence and counterintelligence activities throughout the DOE complex, including nearly 30 intelligence and counterintelligence offices nationwide. It leverages the Energy Department's unmatched scientific and technological expertise in support of policymakers, as well as national security missions in defense, homeland security, cybersecurity, intelligence, and energy security, and is a member of the U.S. intelligence community. Needed reforms. Robust security protocols are necessary to protect DOE technology and innovations from foreign penetration and espionage. In addition, DOE's general isolation from the rest of the intelligence community prevents appropriately cleared senior staff from getting the thorough issue briefings from their colleagues elsewhere in the national security realm receive. New policies. Improve accountability and utilization. IAC should be led by a qualified appointee and report directly to the Secretary and Deputy Secretary. IAC will require strong political leadership, which means finding an appointee with an IC background. In addition, upgrading the new DESAS general security posture will require the Secretary's direct intervention to improve protocols and access the necessary resources from the rest of the IC. This would not be achievable at a lower level. Office of Policy, OP. Mission overview. OP has taken various roles over different administrations. During the Obama administration, OP was a large office and was tasked with drafting the Quadrennial Energy Review, QER. The Trump administration shut down the QER and gave OP a leaner research and advisory role. Under the Biden DOE, OP appears to be focused on preparing reports on climate change and renewables. Needed reforms. Help to develop policy. Because the appointees running DOE's various program offices are properly focused on managing their programs, not enough thought is given to identifying future challenges and developing potential solutions to benefit the American people. Help to ensure that policies are properly implemented. Policy initiatives from the Secretary are often understood or implemented inconsistently by program offices. OP can help the Secretary to ensure that important policy initiatives are implemented, particularly when they involve multiple program offices. New policies. Develop a national energy security strategy. OP could be tasked with developing a national energy security strategy for the Secretary. This strategy could be prepared in conjunction with the White House National Security Strategy and the DoD National Defense Strategy to convey these priorities to Congress and design policy initiatives for their implementation. Such a strategy could summarize cyber and physical threats to energy infrastructure, challenges involved in obtaining rare earth minerals to support domestic energy production and consumption, and foreign actions that threaten U.S. energy security and dominance. However, it would be important to guard against attempts to transform the strategy into a government-led industrial policy, or in a progressive administration, an economy-wide climate policy. Office of Technology Transitions, OTT. Mission overview. The Secretary of Energy authorized the creation of this office in 2015. Its mission is to expand the public impact of the department's research, development, demonstration, and deployment (RDD&D) portfolio to advance the economic, energy, and national security interests of the nation. OTT serves as the front door to U.S. Department of Energy's products, facilities, and expertise, and integrates market pool into its planning to ensure the greatest return on investment from DOE's RD&D activities to the taxpayer. Needed reforms. OTT should ensure that the best emerging technologies from DOE and the national labs are properly supported and protected. Because America's technological edge is a key national security asset, and in view of China's predatory thefts of intellectual property, OTT should ensure that R&D funds are used for projects that protect and advance that edge, ensure that successful advances with a focus on new natural resource development technologies, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and space are transferred swiftly to American interests in the private sector. New policies focus on benefits to Americans. OTT's operations should be based on the recognition that the new technologies generated by American taxpayers' investment in DOE are a significant national security asset rather than some neutral scientific gift to humanity. Increased oversight and coordination. OTT needs to be vigilant in overseeing and coordinating OTT offices associated with each national lab. For security and economic espionage reasons, the work funded by the American people needs to be protected, and when commercialized, it needs to go to American businesses. Office of Science, SC. Mission/overview. The Office of Science, SC, supports and oversees research facilities and programs that cover basic science through its application to the demonstration and deployment of energy technologies. SC oversees 10 of the 17 DOE national labs and 28 major federal research user facilities. Its mission is to preserve U.S. leadership in science, fund and perform basic research, and provide the scientific facilities that the private sector is unable or unwilling to provide. New initiatives include quantum information sciences and artificial intelligence. SC is led by a Senate-confirmed director at the assistant secretary level and has 8 program offices. Needed reforms. The next conservative president should commit the United States to scientific dominance to support national and economic security, especially in light of similar efforts by China. To aid in this effort, the Office of Science should return to its primary mission, nonpartisan and basic science. SC's mission should be international leadership in basic and early applied science and provision of world-leading facilities for this work. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and Inflation Reduction Act marked the major reorientation of DOE primarily from defense applications in the NNSA and basic and early applied science across SC and the applied offices to a massive federal research, development, demonstration, and commercialization body. Distraction from SC's basic science mission should be prevented. Increase the level of accountability. The national laboratories need to be more direct accountable to the Secretary of Energy and Congress for their work and management. New policies. Commit to U.S. science dominance. The United States is losing its dominance in scientific discoveries and technological development. China and other adversaries have been stealing American science and technology for years and are now on the verge of dominating science, a development that is fraught with negative strategic and economic implications for the United States. The next administration must commit itself to ensuring that the United States continues to dominate scientific discovery and technological advancement. Refocus on mission and eliminate duplication and waste. The administration should work with Congress to rationalize the national lab network to meet specific national objectives, such as the NNSA laboratories' role in national defense, and conduct basic research that the private sector would not otherwise conduct. Activities that duplicate those of other government agencies or the private sector should be eliminated. Properly manage the national labs' contributions to the private sector. SC should improve private sector access to the national labs through programs like the GAIN voucher program and consistent with national security considerations, while ensuring that the economic benefits of taxpayer-funded technologies flow back to taxpayers through patent review, sharing, or revolving fund. Budget. The Office of Science was appropriated slightly more than $7 billion in fiscal year 2021, and DOE requested slightly less than $7.8 billion for fiscal year 2023. Office of Environment Management. Mission/overview. The Office of Environmental Management's mission is to complete the safe cleanup of the environmental legacy resulting from decades of nuclear weapons development and government-sponsored nuclear energy research. Its cleanup program is the world's largest, and EM reports that 92 of 107 sites have been completed. According to the U.S. Government Accountability Office, DOE is responsible for the largest share of the federal government's environmental liability, about 85% in fiscal year 2020. Since 2011, EM has spent a cumulative total of $63.2 billion, and its liability has grown by $243 billion. It is currently projected that a cleanup will take another 70 years, fiscal year 2022 to fiscal year 2091. Projected low-range and high-range life cycle costs totally slightly less than $652.4 billion and slightly more than $887.2 billion, respectively. Needed reforms. Some states and contractors see EMs as a jobs program and have little interest in accelerating the cleanup. EM needs to move to an expeditious program with targets for cleanup of sites. The Hanford site in Washington State is a particular challenge. The Tri-Party Agreement, TPA, among DOE, the Environmental Protection Agency, and Washington State Department of Ecology has hampered attempts to accelerate and innovate the cleanup. A central challenge at Hanford is the classification of radioactive waste. High-level waste, HLW, and low-level waste, LLW, classifications drive the remediation and disposal process. Under President Trump, significant changes in waste classification from HLW to LLW enable significant progress on remediation. Implementation needs to continue across the complex, particularly at Hanford. New policies. The next administration should accelerate the cleanup. This means that a comprehensive cost projection and schedule reflecting the entire scope of the job should be developed and appropriate reforms should be instituted. To save taxpayers a potential $500 billion over the long run and reduce current risk, a 10-year program to complete all sites by 2035, except Hanford with a target date of 2060, should be considered. Such a commitment will require increased funding for EM during those accelerated periods. To the extent that funding from the IIJA and IRA cannot be repealed, requests to divert those funds to EM's cleanup obligations should be considered. Fully implement high-level waste determination. Fully adopting the high-level waste HLW determination across the DOE complex, particularly at Hanford, would allow LLW to be grouted rather than vitrified. Increase the use of commercial waste disposal. Using commercial disposal would reduce capital costs, approximately $2 billion, for new disposal sites to accelerate cleanup and reduce local post-cleanup environmental liability at multiple sites. Revisit the Hanford cleanup's regulatory framework. Hanford poses significant political and legal challenges with the state of Washington, and DOE will have to work with Congress to make progress in accelerating cleanup at that site. DOE and EPA need to work more closely to coordinate their responses to claims made under the TPA and work more aggressively for changes, including congressional action if necessary, to achieve workable cleanup goals. Establish more direct leadership and accountability to the Deputy Secretary, consistent with Government Accountability Office recommendation. Change environmental management's culture to promote innovation and completion. Budgets. Environmental management received slightly less than $7.6 billion in fiscal year 2021, and its budget request for fiscal year 2023 is approximately $8.06 billion. The additional funding necessary to accelerate closure of the program will need to be considered as part of a broader government-wide discussion about yearly appropriations. Office of Civilian Radioactive Waste Management, OCRWM, currently Office of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition. Mission/overview. The Nuclear Waste Policy Act, NWPA, of 1982 conferred the responsibility for commercial nuclear waste disposal on the federal government, and in 2002, Congress designated a single repository located at Yucca Mountain in Nevada as the National Repository Site. The act also established the Office of Civilian Radioactive Waste Management, OCRWM. The Obama administration shut down OCRWM in 2010. The Office of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition, which is headed by a non-confirmed Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Office of Nuclear Energy, is currently responsible for the management of nuclear waste, and interim disposal is taking place on various sites. Providing a plan for the proper disposal of civilian nuclear waste is essential to the promotion of nuclear power in the United States. Needed reforms. Work with Nuclear Regulatory Commission as it reviews DOE's permit applications for Yucca Mountain. According to both the scientific community and global experience, deep geologic storage is critical to any plan for the proper disposal of more than 75 years of defense waste and 80,000 tons of commercial spent nuclear fuel. Yucca Mountain remains a viable option for waste management, and DOE should recommit to working with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission as it reviews DOE's permit application for a repository. Finishing the review does not mean that Yucca Mountain will be completed and be operational. It merely presents all the information for the state of Nevada, Congress, the nuclear industry, and the administration to use as the basis for informed decisions. Reform the licensing process. The reactor licensing process is inadequate. Fixing nuclear waste management will require wholesale reform that realigns responsibilities, resets incentives, and introduces market forces without creating chaos within the current nuclear industry that has been built around the current system. Produce concrete outcomes from consent-based sitting. Beginning in the Obama administration and resurrected during the Biden administration, consent-based sitting for a civilian waste nuclear repository has been a way to delay any political painful decisions about sitting a permanent civilian nuclear waste facility. In 2022, DOE announced $16 million to support local communities in consent-based sitting. The next administration should use the consent-based sitting process to identify and build temporary or permanent sites for a civilian waste nuclear repository or repositories. New policies. Restart Yucca Mountain licensing. DOE should restart the Yucca Mountain licensing process. Any continuation of interim storage facilities should be made of an integrated waste management system that includes geologic storage. Further, building on the consent-based sitting process already underway, DOE should find a second repository site. Fix the policy and cost drivers that are preventing nuclear storage. The federal government continues to hold $46 billion in the Nuclear Waste Fund, NWF, funded by utilities and their ratepayers for permanent disposal of nuclear waste. However, no such storage exists, and spent nuclear fuel remains on site at most nuclear plants. Meanwhile, Congress uses those funds to finance assistance, uses those funds unrelated spending. Moreover, DOE's violation of its contractual obligation to take the waste has resulted in the payment of approximately $10.1 billion in settlements and judgments to contract holders. So we're going to take a brief commercial break. As we're building the billionaire brand, you have the YouTube page, and I'm going to play day 62 of the billionaire journey of Adrian Mays, AI genius. And this is where you actually can find all of the recordings of the lives of the plan that we're talking about right here at Adrian Mays. So we're on number 10. So you go click on live and you'll see all of the different projects 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But we're going to play a video really quick while I take care of my 4:30 obligation. Day 62, how to deal with HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired, explained. We're going to play that for you live. Sometimes you got to take a breather and just stop. HALT. Self-check for a balanced life. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Adrian Mays, The Billionaire Journey. Sometimes you got to take a breather and just stop and stand and understand that the process is right in front of you and you're exactly where you're supposed to be today. Adrian Mays, day 62 in the Billionaire in the Making journey, and realizing that all of these triggers can have significant impact on the outcome and the mood and the decision-making process that you have. It's crucial to self-check sometimes and literally understand that reevaluating your billionaire mindset, maintaining this balance helps you with clarity. This random act of kindness, reading this Project 2025, it's something that was bespoke. It was unique. And starting with a simple truth of understanding if it's something that I've never done before, which I've never read 900 pages out loud in a row, I will always get what I've done and get it done. However, the impact that it's making, that's the part that I wasn't ready for. And the small triggers that help other people, I just didn't know the importance of just change and growth. So I just thank God for choosing me to help out move forward and achieve the goals of listening, helping people make the decision, and even addressing the issues that hold us back. Just understanding this new document before you make your next steps. A lot of people want to actually make change, but just might have fear. Fear is the first. It's a lot of things, right? But it's something that we would lose if we could just get over it. And all of us already possess or fail to get something we demand. But the fear is literally face everything and recover. We can demand and we can have our thoughts and we can have our ups and downs, but if we just recover over them and knowing that God has us already covered. Living on a basis of unsatisfied demands, that's kind of what happens because you want one thing, but God already has the plan out there. You just got to trust it. No peace can be had unless you literally just let go and let God and let go of it. Understand that the billionaire plan will come when it's supposed to come. Understand that owning your family, your faith, your fears, your finance, and fitness is not going to be overnight. The difference between a demand and a simple request of random acts of kindness, you got to make it a daily action. It's not always just about money. Sometimes someone might not be clear on something, or just something as simple as a smile. So peace is possible for people, and when you let go of expectations, when you're trapped in the thoughts of what you think should be, your state of fear and anticipation, that's how your mind gets boggled with emotional sobriety, and it's not very conducive to understanding. So to achieve true peace, you have to surrender and let go and let God. You have to surrender and turn it all over and understand that the reality of dependence on God is the best reality you can have. Find peace, find gratitude, find humility and spirituality in regards to the security of knowing He's got you covered. So Adrian Mays, AI genius, it's essential to recognize that when we're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, these might be state of minds that we might need to make the decision to just stop. Pause, ponder, pray, and proceed before you do anything else, and take some time for yourself. Check in with yourself regularly and address self-care and thinking clearly, because that's going to help you with better decision making. Remember, the journey to becoming a billionaire or achieving any significant goal is not just about financial success. We have to have the right moves up here before when we get there. So it's about emotional and spiritual growth as well. Having a digital franchise brand and having these opportunities to help people, that's, managing the triggers. You got to understand people, you have to meet them where they are too. So letting go of unrealistic demands, paving the way for a fulfilling future and a peaceful life, that's what you do when you plan. So, Adrian Mays, AI Genius, day 62. Thank you so much for joining me. And going to get back to it. We're on part 8 of Project 2025. And make sure you just take a moment today and tap into your self check. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Address these needs with kindness and self care for yourself. Give yourself a hug, smile for yourself, give yourself a thank you and gratitude, and thank where you are and just reflect where you were last year at this time. Remember, peace is gratitude, and it's found in you creating your own environment. So we'll be back at it in a minute in regards to part 8. But if you didn't catch 1 through 7, make sure you check those out on @AdrianMays and share this with someone that might need to hear about this, might not want to read 900 pages. And Adrian Mays, Random Acts of Kindness, continue every day the journey together. I can, I will, I must. Stay blessed. Let's go. Keep striving for greatness. And what's dope? Detroit, one product, educate. Let's go. Deuces. Adrian Mays back here with you live. Yay! Hopefully you enjoyed that brief commercial break of Adrian Mays, day 62 of the Billionaire Journey. And then too, we're going to jump right back in to reading the playbook. Project 2025, our friend, our buddy, was introduced. I just love this arrows, but we're going to go live and we're going to get right back into it. We're on part 10, as you saw. 1 through 9 can be found on @Adrian Mays. And if you need any, drop in the comments what you think is the most impactful part that you're going to share as a random act of kindness to someone else about the Project 2025, about the reading. Just kind of share a little bit and let me know in the comments if you're gaining some of this information, if it makes sense to you, if it's intimidating. Kind of, we're almost halfway through the actual document, so I'd love to hear from you. So leave in the comments and let me know kind of what your vibe is with the mandate for leadership. But we're going to jump right back into the reading because, again, we're at 430 out of 922. If you're looking at the download, and we're looking at the PDF, we're at 397. So we're going to jump right back in so we don't lose any time. So fits the policy and cost drivers that are preventing nuclear storage. The federal government continues to hold $46 billion in the Nuclear Waste Fund, NWF, funded by utilities and the ratepayers for permanent disposal of nuclear waste. However, no such storage exists, and spent nuclear fuel remains on site at most nuclear plants. Meanwhile, Congress uses those funds to finance unrelated spending. Moreover, DOE's violation of its contractual obligation to take the waste has resulted in the payment of approximately $10.1 billion in assessments and judgments to contract holders. Develop new NWF funding and accounting mechanisms that allow licensed nuclear operators to guarantee resources for future nuclear waste disposal while also maintaining control of those resources. Reconstitute OCRWM. OCRWM, as already established by statute, should be tasked with developing new steps on Yucca Mountain and nuclear waste management. These steps should include initiating market reforms, including significant amendments to the NWPA to allow additional industry responsibilities for managing waste, market pricing and competition for waste services, and the opportunities for Nevadans to have more partnership involvement with any nuclear facility at Yucca Mountain. Reestablish, consistent with the Nuclear Waste Policy Act, the position of Director of the Office of Civilian Radioactive Waste Management. Budget. Within the Office of Nuclear Energy Budget, approximately $100 million is set aside for fuel cycle and waste management activities. These funds should be transferred to the newly established OCRWM, which should also be responsible for managing the Nuclear Waste Fund and given access to the fund as necessary to carry out its responsibilities. National Nuclear Security Administration, NNSA, mission/overview. NNSA's primary mission is to provide and maintain a modern, safe, and effective nuclear deterrent for the United States. This includes the design and production of nuclear warheads, their integration with delivery systems, and their safe storage and decommissioning. NNSA's responsibilities also include developing nuclear reactors for the U.S. Navy and working to prevent nuclear weapon proliferation and reduce the threat of nuclear and radiological terrorism around the world. NNSA was established by the NNSA Act, which also defines its authority. Needed reforms. The United States, through the NNSA, needs to make the design, development, and deployment of new nuclear warheads a top priority. Existing warheads were designed and built during the Cold War, and the United States lacks sufficient plutonium production capabilities. Because this process will take time, NNSA and the NNSA labs need to ensure that existing nuclear warheads are viable and provide an appropriate strategic deterrent. New policies. The expansion of Chinese nuclear forces, the continued nuclear threat from Russia, and active nuclear programs in North Korea, Iran, and elsewhere require NNSA's recommitment to the nuclear mission. A conservative administration should continue to develop new warheads for each branch of the triad, land, sea, and air defenses. If possible, reverse the Biden administration's decision to retire the B-83 bomb in order to maintain 2 aircraft-delivered warheads, and its decision to cancel the submarine launch cruise missile, SLCM. Also, undertake an evaluation of the need for nuclear anti-submarine and air defense weapons in light of emerging threats. Maintain 2 production sites for plutonium pits, a key element of warhead production at Los Alamos and Savannah River. Reject ratification of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty and indicate a willingness to conduct nuclear tests in response to adversary nuclear developments if necessary. This will require that NNSA be directed to move to immediate test readiness to give the administration maximum flexibility in responding to adversary actions. Review all new Navy, Department of Homeland Security, and U.S. Department of Transportation Maritime Administration construction programs. The review should be conducted by the Director of Naval Reactors, DNR, with an eye to the possible inclusion of advanced affordable nuclear reactor technology and extension of DNR authority over these agencies' nuclear construction programs. Review the non-national security portfolios at the Los Alamos, Lawrence, Livermore, and Sandia labs and identify divestments to focus on nuclear deterrence. Los Alamos, Lawrence Livermore, and Sandia provide unique capabilities for nuclear deterrence, and each lab maintains extensive non-national security research programs and commercial activities. Review the operations of the Nuclear Weapons Council, NWC. The statutorily established NWC is required to report to the President and Congress, but needs to refocus its efforts on providing comprehensive oversight of DOE and DOD nuclear weapons policy and requirements. Budget. Concurrent modernization of the nuclear triad and its warheads will be a major challenge to the DOD and DOE budgets over the coming decade. DOE non-nuclear programs should be the first source of additional resources for NNSA activities. Divestment of non-nuclear activities from NNSA laboratories can address some overhead and operational costs. NNSA received $19.7 billion in 2021, and its FY 2023 budget request was $21.4 billion. The next administration should ensure that funding is targeted to the accelerated development of new warheads. Personnel. NNSA has tended to act as though it is not part of DOE and has resisted oversight by the Secretary of Energy. The NNSA Act grants some autonomy to the NNSA, but it also makes it clear that NNSA is under the authority of the Secretary. NNSA's leaders needs to understand that ultimately they report to the secretary. Oh, well, huh. Sorry. Watching Wimbledon as well. Pause. I apologize. FERC Electric Reliability and Resilience Mission Slash Overview. The Federal Power Act has FERC, along with the FERC designated North American Electric Reliability Corporation, NERC, develops technical standards and FERC adopts them as mandatory standards, including cybersecurity standards with which transmission providers, generators, and utilities must comply. Under the Federal Power Act, critical electric infrastructure security and issues like electromagnetic pulse, EMP, are addressed by both FERC and DOE. In addition, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act directed FERC to establish incentive-based rate treatments by encouraging utilities to invest in advanced cybersecurity technology and participate in cybersecurity threat information sharing programs. Needed reforms. There's a growing program with the electric grid reliability because of the increasing growth of subsidized intermittent renewable generation, like wind and solar, and a lack of dispatchable generation, for example, power plants powered by natural gas, nuclear, and coal, especially during hot and cold weather. FERC and NERC have been studying the potential for generation shortages across the nation in the summer and winter. Cyber and physical attacks also threaten the grid. Specific areas for reform include the following: limit the impact of subsidized renewables on price formation. Subsidized renewable resources are undermining electric reliability in RTOs. The increase in subsidized intermittent resources is undermining the ability of RTOs' pricing models to support the reliable dispatchable generation that is needed to serve the grid at all times. Reform the application of reserve margins. Reserve margins have become largely meaningless. Traditionally, the electric industry has used reserve margins to ensure that the grid has enough power plants to guarantee reliability. Generally, reserve margins represent the amount of generation available power plants to meet peak electric demand, the time of day and year when people are using the most electricity, plus a percentage of additional generation for backup. However, given the increasing number of intermittent resources like solar, which may be available during the heat of the day but disappears as the sun sets, other dispatchable generation needs to be available to meet customers' electricity requirements. Therefore, the definitions and calculations of reserve margins and peak load need to be updated to focus on the modern grid's reliability challenges for all times of the day and year. Recognize the interdependence of electric generation and natural gas. The interdependence of electric generation and natural gas pipelines continues to grow. Given natural gas's important role in generating electricity, especially as backup when renewables are not available, lack of natural gas pipelines or attacks on existing pipelines could threaten our ability to generate electricity. Expands resource diversity and reliability. Resource diversity is needed to support grid reliability. Pressure to use 100% renewables or non-carbon emitting resources threatens the electric grid's reliability. A grid that has access to dispatchable resources such as coal, nuclear, and natural gas for generating power is inherently more reliable and resilient. Protect against cyber and physical attacks. The threat of cyber and physical attacks on electric infrastructure by foreign actors like China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran, as well as terrorists, continues to grow. The attacks with guns on substations in North Carolina in December 2022 that left customers without power demonstrate the grid's vulnerability. New policies. Reform RTOs to require reliability. FERC should direct RTOs to establish reliability pricing for eligible dispatchable generation resources or require intermittent resources to procure backup power for times when they are not available to operate. In addition, Congress should repeal subsidies for generation resources. Update the definition and calculation of reserve margins to support reliability. FERC, NERC, and DOE should devise the definition of reserve margins to ensure the grid's reliability throughout the day and the year. This will mean recognizing that reserve margins may need to consider net peak and exclude non-dispatchable resources from inclusion in reserve margin calculations. Expand and protect natural gas infrastructure in support of electric generation. FERC needs to ensure that its consideration of natural gas plays in electric reliability. FERC also needs to make sure that RTO pricing mechanisms support generators that need to contract for natural gas service on a firm basis. Support resource diversity and reliability. FERC, NERC, and DOE play key roles in balancing consumer, industrial, and national defense interests to ensure ongoing reliable, plentiful, and accessible national electricity supply. NERC reliability reviews and FERC's reliability roles should be aware that over-reliance on any one power generation fuel source entails concurrent costs and availability risks. FERC should reform market rules that unduly discriminate against dispatchable resources needed for reliability, strengthen security against cyber and physical threats. FERC and NERC need to enhance the security of the bulk power system by, for example, banning Chinese-made components, investing in transformers, and hardening substations and other critical infrastructure. DOE should play a leading role in identifying and addressing threats to the grid. FERC, RTOS, ISOS, and electric power markets. Mission/overview. For more than 20 years, FERC has issued regulations and directed policies for the creation and operation of regional transmission organizations, RTOs, and independent system operators, ISOs, to manage the dispatch of generation and transmission of electricity. Under the misnomer electric power markets, these regulatory constructs use marginal price clearing auction in some cases, but both hourly day ahead auctions and 5-minute day of need auctions, and locational marginal pricing to procure electric generation and set prices to meet the needs of the grid. Some RTOs also have capacity auctions. Of the nation's 7 RTOs, 6 are subject to FERC jurisdiction, but not ERCOT in Texas. Areas without an RTO include the Southeast and portions of the West, although California is in an RTO. Needed reforms. Too many conservatives have assumed that because RTOs are described as electric power markets, market forces of supply and demand set electric prices and benefit customers. RTOs are complex regulatory constructs with rules set by FERC that obscure government interference and preferences for preferred resources. Furthermore, government preferences and subsidies for resources like wind and solar distort price formation for electricity that is undermining the reliability of the grid. Finally, customers are not seeing the full economic benefits that the non-fuel subsidized resources should provide. Additionally, electric reliability is threatened in many RTOs. As subsidized renewables like wind and solar receiving tax credits and state renewable portfolio standards, RPS programs, have disrupted market functions, price distortions, have driven out reliable dispatchable resources like coal, natural gas, and nuclear generation in various RTOs. The result, electric reliability is decreasing in many parts of the country. As noted, FERC and NERC have been studying the potential for summer and winter shortages. RTOs are not providing the full economic benefit of renewables to customers. Because RTOs use marginal price auctions where natural gas usually set the clearing price paid to all generators, the economic benefits of renewables, no fuel, tax credits, etc., are flowing mainly to renewable investors and not to customers, although customers do benefit from some decrease in marginal costs. Yet reliability is decreasing, so customers are getting the worst of both worlds, paying more for electricity and having less reliability for the money. Big Green and Big Tech want RTO expansion. Renewable developers, large industrial users, and big tech tend to want RTO expansion for their own economic and ESG reasons. These entities can benefit economically from the complexity and marginal pricing regime of the RTOs. Increased costs and reliability problems are often shifted to other customers. Unlike vertically integrated utilities that are accountable to state elected officials and state public utility commissions, RTOs and their participants are accountable only to FERC. Even then, however, accountability is indirect through the tariffs rules that the RTOs adopt and FERC approves. In addition, unlike utilities, generators in RTO have no obligation to serve customers. New policies. FERC must make reliability of the grid and service to end use top priorities. To do so, it should re-examine the premise of RTOs. RTOs no longer seem to work for the benefit of the American people. Marginal price auctions for energy are not ensuring the right reliability of the grid and are not passing the full economic benefits of subsidized renewables onto customers. FERC needs to re-examine the RTOs under its jurisdiction to make sure that they procure reliable and affordable electricity for the benefit of the American people. Ensure that RTOs return to market fundamentals so that they serve customers, not special interests and political causes. FERC should require RTOs to ensure that reliable, dispatchable resources are properly valued to provide electricity when needed for the benefit of customers. Potential reforms could include, number one, requiring renewable generators to provide intraday backup by dispatchable on-demand generation so that bids by intermittent resources into RTOs equate fairly with far more valuable on-demand dispatchable resources. Number two, creating dual energy markets for dispatchable and non-dispatchable resources. Or number three, eliminating capacity markets where intermittent resources participate and instead establishing reliability markets where dispatchable on-demand resources participate. Alternatives to marginal price auctions should be considered. Direct the RTOs to ensure that the economic benefits of renewables, like tax credits and no fuel costs, are passed on to customers. End undue discrimination that allows subsidized resources to distort price formation in RTOs. Affirm its commitment that states will decide whether to join an RTO instead of imposing RTOs on regions that do not want them. FERC should also consider allowing states to enter into non-RTO power pools with alternative structures for the sharing of resources in electric generation. FERC electric transmission. Mission/overview. Under the Federal Power Act, FERC has the authority to regulate the rates, terms, and conditions of interstate electric transmission. Pursuant to court cases, interstate transmission can be entirely within the state, although the part of Texas served by ERCOT is not under FERC transmission jurisdiction. Needed reforms. FERC has been considering how to plan for and allocate costs for new transmission lines and how new generation resources will be interconnected to the transmission grid. Transmission expansion and replacement decisions are usually made by local utilities or by an RTO or regional planning entity. Through two major rulemakings, FERC is attempting to facilitate the building of more long-range transmission lines and to socialize more of the cost of transmission buildouts to more customers in order to make it cheaper for renewable developers, primarily to interconnect to the grid and sell their power. Socializing such costs is a form of subsidy for generators and will cause further price distortions in RTOs and ISOs that will make it less economical for reliable, dispatchable resources like coal, nuclear, and natural gas to stay operational and support reliability. Also, under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, DOE and FERC are granted authority to site and permit high priority transmission lines as national interest electric transmission corridors, NIETCs. The Inflation Reduction Act provides funding to DOE to support transmission expansion. These initiatives will undermine state input in decision making. FERC will consider rules on how NIETC transmission applications are to be made. New policies. FERC should either change course on its existing transmission rulemakings, if still in progress, or issue a new rulemaking to ensure that transmission planning and interconnection processes are resource neutral, prevent socializing costs for customers who do not benefit from the projects or justifying such cost shifts as advancing vague societal benefits such as climate change. Stop cost allocation from becoming a subsidy for generators such as renewables. With respect to NIETCs, FERC, and the new DESAs should ensure that state interests are respected and not allow such NEITC transmission lines to be developed as a mere subsidy to renewable developers. Furthermore, much of the transition build-out, including its attendant cost, is being driven by renewable developers seeking market share. These projects are causing rates for customers to go up and hurting reliability. FERC needs to ensure that transmission buildouts are planned for the benefit of customers. FERC natural gas pipelines, mission/overview. FERC permits sites and authorizes the construction and operation of interstate natural gas pipelines. It also regulates the rates for shipping of natural gas, but not the price of natural gas commodity, which is market-based. FERC is charged with ensuring that natural gas pipelines are approved if they are required by the public convenience and necessity. Pipeline permitting is subject to environmental reviews under NEPA, and the rate for the pipeline and the shipping of the commodity is set by FERC under a just and reasonable standard. Once FERC approves a project, the holder of the certificate has the sovereign's power of eminent domain. Needed reforms. Natural gas pipelines are vital for the economy, manufacturing, heating, and electric generation. Opposition from Keep It in the Ground environmentalists has made it harder to gain approvals for natural gas pipelines. Under Democrat leadership, FERC has proposed official policies to consider upstream and downstream GHG emissions from the use of the natural gas that will be shipped in the pipeline to be a part of FERC's public interest determination. When deciding whether to approve a pipeline, there's conflicting direction from the DC Circuit on the GHG issue, which also could be seen as a major questions issue under the U.S. Supreme Court's West Virginia versus EPA decision. New policies. FERC should recommit itself to the NGA's purpose of providing the American people with access to affordable and reliable natural gas. Limit its NGA decision-making on natural gas pipeline certificates to the question of whether there is a need for the natural gas. Limit its NPA analysis to the impacts of the actual pipeline itself, not indirect upstream and downstream effects. In addition, Congress, the states, and FERC should consider how better to protect and compensate property owners whose property is taken for the benefit of the public. FERC also needs to be mindful that natural gas pipelines and projects are important for domestic access to natural gas, including local natural gas utilities, natural gas fired electric generation and manufacturing, as well as for exports of liquefied natural gas. FERC LNG export facilities. Mission slash overview. FERC slash permits and sites and authorizes the construction and operation of LNG export facilities. It does not authorize the export of natural gas. DOE exercises that authority. LNG export facilities are important for delivering natural gas to markets around the world and have become an important policy tool in limiting the ability of Russia and Middle Eastern countries to use energy as a tool in foreign affairs. Needed reforms. LNG exports are opposed by climate activists. In addition, some domestic manufacturers argue that LNG exports decrease available U.S. supplies of natural gas and increase the domestic price, thereby harming the competitive advantages of U.S. manufacturers in world markets. Currently, most LNG export facilities are along the Gulf of Mexico and Texas and Louisiana. Attempts to build facilities on the West Coast, Jordan Cove LNG, and the East Coast have not moved forward for a variety of reasons. Delays and cost of litigation can cause developers to cancel projects. An Alaska facility was approved by FERC in 2020, and the Biden administration has indicated in its support. An East Coast facility in Pennsylvania or nearby would unlock Marcellus shale natural gas for exports. FERC is considering policy statements that will consider GHG emissions as part of its NPA review and its NGA determination as to whether approval of an LNG export facility is consistent with the public interest. New policies. Since Congress, through the NGA, has already determined that LNG exports to countries with free trade agreements are in the public interest, and because LNG exports help to ensure America's ability to support our friends and allies around the world while also supporting domestic natural gas production, FERC should not use environmental issues like climate change as a result to stop LNG projects, should ensure that the natural gas pipelines that are needed deliver more of the products to market, both for domestic use and export, and are reviewed, developed, and constructed in a timely manner. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, mission slash overview. The Energy Reorganization Act of 1974 created the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC. Before then, the commercial nuclear industry was regulated by the Atomic Energy Commission, AEC, which was established by the 1954 Atomic Energy Act. Importantly, the AEC was responsible for encouraging and regulating commercial nuclear power. Broad criticism of this dual function was a major factor in the establishment of the NRC, which held regulatory authority while the newly established Department of Energy held the advocacy function. Today, the NRC is responsible for a broad range of regulatory activities, including reactor safety, oversight of nuclear materials, and protection against radiation, as well as permitting new reactors, certifying new reactor designs, and regulating nuclear waste management activities. Needed reforms. In 1989, the NRC established alternative licensing processes that were meant to provide a more predictable and efficient regulatory pathway for new light water reactors, LWRs, by combining construction and operating nuclear power plant licenses, allowing for early site permits, and establishing a framework for pre-approval of reactor designs. More recently, the Nuclear Energy Innovation and Modernization Act directed the NRC to establish a technology-neutral licensing process for new, advanced reactor technologies. Despite these efforts, the NRC remains a significant cost and regulatory barrier to new nuclear power. Especially frustrating is that these costs, to a large extent, are due to the agencies being overly prescriptive rather than outcomes focused and fall on well-known and understood LWR reactor technologies. New policies. While refocusing its regulatory efforts on new reactor technologies, the NRC should also continue to ensure the security of radiological sources and mitigate cybersecurity risks across the industry. Applications for combined operating licenses, COLs, and design certifications that rely on light water technology should generally be completed within 2 years. Early site permits should generally be issued within 1 year for construction on or adjacent to an existing reactor site. Additionally, the NRC should expedite the review and approval of license extensions of existing reactors, which will require the NRC to streamline and focus its NEPA review process, set clear radiation exposure and protection standards by eliminating ALARA as low as reasonable achievable as a regulatory principle, and setting clear standards according to radiological risk and dose rather than arbitrary objectives. Work with Congress to reform its funding approach so that licensee fees are generally required for activities that are specific to a regulated entity, with other agency costs being provided through normal appropriations. Budget. In fiscal year 2022, the NRC was required to recover approximately 85% of its $887.7 million budget through licensee fees. The Nuclear Energy Innovation and Modernization requires the NRC to recover nearly all of its costs thoroughly through fees. These reforms would likely not cost additional money, but could rebalance the fee versus appropriations calculation. Author's note. The preparation of this chapter was the work of many individuals. All contributors to this chapter are listed at the front of this volume, but I wish to give special thanks to Brent Bennett, Willits Bitsby, Travis Fisher, Ben Lieberman, Brian McCormick, Tom Pyle, Mark Robeck, Daniel Simmons, Jack Spencer, Katie Tubb, and David Walsh. Though informed by many, the author alone assumes responsibility for the content of this chapter, and no views expressed herein should be attributed to any particular individual. So we've come to the end of page. We are currently on page, let's see here, 440. We're looking at the end notes. We're going to be on chapter 13. I'm sorry, Mandy, for butchering your last name. Mandy M. Gunasekara. Dang. Mandy M. Gunasekara. So the Environmental Protection Agency, 450 out of 922. We're going to pick this up for the evening session of the reading of Project 2025, Mandate for Leadership. So hopefully you have enjoyed. That was chapter 12. We'll pick up on chapter 13, and we're almost halfway there. Get some more reading in this evening here, but take a short break, head over to the office, and get some more reading in for this evening. So in the interim, leave in the comments and jump over into the community and share some information about what random acts of kindness are you going to provide to someone to actually highlight this Project 2025 in the Random Acts of Kindness community. Head on over to cccwecaremi.com and join the community. Throw in your name, your address, your email address, and your phone number, and you will be able to receive via email access to the community, free community, where you're able to post your random acts of kindness ideas for a chance to get your idea funded on September 11th, 2024. So Adrian Mays, my bespoke random acts of kindness is reading the Project 2025, the playbook, and the mandate for leadership, because there's a rate of so many people. I mean, it's 900 pages, 922 pages, and we don't want to get away from not being able to vote. We want to make sure that you have as much information possible when you're making informed decisions. And so reading this information, this is not like Adrian Mays's version of how to, this is the verbatim documentation being read aloud. So I'm getting through this portion so I can move to the next portion of life. But this portion is so much information when you're building on wealth creation, financial education, travel experiences, health and wellness, and artificial intelligence education, and building a virtual community. You got to know what's going on when you're building a billionaire plan. So I am so thankful for this opportunity. And hopefully this is being valuable for the people that don't want to read it, want to listen to it. Because again, getting this information in front of you is the first step. It's education, the transparency, ingenuity, just clear cut information, nothing, no sprinkles from Adrian at all. You're just getting real info. So I'm gonna pick it back up this evening. I'm about to go to break here, go head over to my office in downtown Detroit. We're in Canton, Michigan right now, but again, what up, dope? Detroit, one product, Adrian, educate. So I'll talk to you soon. Hopefully you're enjoying this as much as I am, learning the information about what's going on. And so I can make informed decisions. I can, I will, I must. Let's go. Deuces. Ah.